So in the last few years, we've been showing a lot of on-road type of concept cars and launching them. And with the QX Sports inspiration, it's now we're showing the public what the SUVs will look like. So what happens to this artistry, this muscularity, when it starts to take on a more commanding presence? In QX Sports inspiration, commanding presence is shown by we raise the center of gravity. So no longer are we focused on dropping the car to the ground or making it kind of grounded. Now we're trying to show its capabilities. So by raising the center of gravity, keeping it between the wheels, you're able to have the same sense of sculpture and artistry, but it's now takes on this impression of that it can go over any kind of road surface. So this is a key, really the first step. Infinitis all have some inspiration from nature, probably obviously the organic shapes that are contrasted with very sharp angular elements. This is how we kind of mix, how we curate the palette. But strictly, I wouldn't say that it's inspired by nature as much as, again, the sense of performance. Has some organic sense of muscularity and artistry. When the designers started, I mean, one of the first elements that we felt was natural to keep was the very strong and straight shoulder. What is happening with the QX Sports inspiration is that the body's become a bit deeper and that it has a bit of a reverse wedge, and this started to show up in the sketches of the designers, especially the body core is sweeping down to the rear wheel. Again, I think it gives us this leaping quality that we don't really use on the road cars, but we find interesting for the SUVs. The advanced human artistry that we started showing on Q80 inspiration has made its way into QX Sports inspiration. Especially in the sense of the power coming from the engine. So off of the front wheel area, the body side is quite tight and it has a sense of muscle intention. And then as it opens up towards the rear, it's delivering the power towards the rear wheels. And this expression and how those sections transition towards the back, this is where we exhibit our artistry. Like all Infinitis, QX Sports inspiration has our three common attributes. We have our double arch grille, our focused human eye, and of course our crescent cut C-pillar. Now on the grille, we have maintained the larger aspect that we have on Q60 and Q80 and a lot of the cars. But now we're playing a bit with the mesh on QX Sports inspiration. It's a mix between geometry and organic shapes, which we felt had this kind of a nice granularity, nice detail. The focused human eye now has gone very high tech. So each of the segments, the little box sections, are part of an intelligent adaptive system that can follow people who cross into the way of the car, but also are sensitive to oncoming traffic's glare. So this kind of high tech, but still a human eye aspect we keep. And then as you come around the side, of course, the crescent cut C-pillar is quite structural. It looks like it holds up the roof, but it still has this sense of artistry in its signature itself. We express in our architecture power through proportion clarity. We use proportion at a glance as an identifier for Infiniti. This comes back to the first FX, currently QX70. At a glance, you immediately notice the very long hood, very straight shoulder, and a kind of a pod-like cabin, which was set back. It was a silhouette in a proportion that you just would never forget. And so we've learned from this, and we bring it to every car. So this kind of clarity that the proportion has a signature, and that the proportion has a power, expresses the power in the engine and the drivetrain. This is the fundamental steps of Infiniti design. One of the things that we really like about QX Sports Inspiration is that it's kind of leaning forward, ready to pounce, ready to leap, can go over anything, but still maintains a very chic, elegant artistry. This is, again, how we keep an Infiniti DNA regardless of the segment that we go into. When we were really setting the architecture or the muscularity, the movement, the body side has this sense where the core of the body side is tight and opens up towards the back. And it has an arcing downward motion, which actually gives you this feeling that the muscularity or the gesture of the vehicle is going to pounce, is going to leap, that it can go over any terrain that it encounters. So this we've picked up, and this is part of the SUV DNA of Infiniti. Every Infiniti has powerful elegance, no matter what the segment is, what the age group of the customer, because they buy into this culture that Infiniti has, where we can mix something quite in the soul that's powerful and expressive, but it also has a nuanced artistry that is almost in contrast or in opposition. And so QX Sports Inspiration does this in a similar way to Q80, in the sense of the artistry of the body, the way nothing stays the same. The sections through the body side are transitioning, they tense and release, they surround the wheel openings in a very beautiful way. So the artistry is always in the sculpture. The QX Sports Inspiration is the first glimpse on what Infinitis will look like as SUVs. So of course we have much more to come that is not only SUVs, but you are going to see now the beginning of the next generation of Infiniti SUV. When you come inside the QX Sports Inspiration, the artistry is really pumped up. The use of the hides, the leathers. We use saddle leather, which is quite thick and actually very hard to move over shapes. So those bits of surface tend to be sheer and somewhat linear or planar. And then we actually have very smooth leather that's sliced, that actually then is stretched out, exposing speakers from behind. So the QX Sports Inspiration inside is a very advanced sense of artistry, in the sense of the tailor, very experimental, very high contrast. The blacks and the whites are next to each other and quite bold. And also the array of textures is quite impressive. Probably the most outstanding part of the QX Sports Inspiration, it's how the form language of Infiniti clearly has become more muscular, more stern, more assertive, more commanding, but still never loses its the fingerprint of the artist. So this is probably the outstanding feature of the vehicle. As we start to look at the genres of the SUVs, I think you'll expect 2 or 3 cars that will have different degrees of commanding presence. If you look at today's portfolio, we have our midsize and our slightly larger, and then you have our body on frame QX80. So we'll start to reveal in shows to come how these aspects from QX Sports Inspiration work their way through the portfolio.